So fairly recently I made a video going through some predictions I had for what might happen in Joe Abercrombie's The Wisdom of Crowds, the final installment in the Age of Madness trilogy, which is the newest iteration of the First Law series, which is my favourite fantasy series. Since making that video, The Wisdom of Crowds has since come out. I have bought it, read it, thought a lot about it. It's definitely one of those that's staying on my mind, knocking around in there like the DVD logo. And I will be doing a review of it, but I want to give it a little bit more time to just settle into my head so I can do a more subjective review rather than one that is fueled by all of the emotions that book gave me. But to tide us over until I do that review, I thought it might be fun to look back at that predictions video I made and see what I got right, what I got wrong, and what I'm going to pretend I got right anyway. So I've got that video queued up here. Let's all see how accurate my predictions were.
The Wisdom of Crowds, next book in the Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Oh, this should go without saying, but spoiler warning for the entire First Law series.
I'll also bring that up here. Complete spoilers for the entire First Law trilogy, spoilers for The Wisdom of Crowds, which does inherently contain spoilers for the First Law series as a whole. So full spoiler warning, nothing is off the table. If you're not completely up to date with the First Law, I would highly recommend that you get up to date before continuing this video.
We're gonna be talking about the spoilers in though. It's gonna be hard to not to. There's a few throwaway lines that give the indication that Bayaz is having some sort of dispute with his siblings, the other members of the Order of the Magi. I definitely think in Wisdom that is gonna come to the forefront.
So that's a point I was wrong about. Bayaz is in the Wisdom of Crowds a fair bit, and he's not happy about what's happening. But we didn't get any, further conflicts between him and Zacharias and Cornel, which I thought there were a few lines in Little Hatred and Trouble with Peace that might be leading up to that, but turns out I was reading a bit too much into it.
Sabine and Zuri now.
Now I was right on this point. Zuri being Ishri and her brothers also being Eaters. That was a very prominent fan theory that I jumped on the bandwagon of last minute, and good job I did, because it turned out to be correct. Really loved the chapter in Wisdom of Crowds where we got that reveal. That was really well done.
Imminent foreshadowing to a betrayal happening.
Although it wasn't really a betrayal when it all came to a head. Betrayal was maybe the wrong word to use. Not a betrayal, but she was an eater. There was definitely a lot of conflicting emotions, but Ishri/Zuri is quite clearly on Savine's side, where we are currently.
Will Leo find any kind of redemption for what he's done? Will he make amends with Durand and his mother?
So we got a little bit of recompense between him and Durand, and that friendship got rekindled. Leo didn't actually have as bad a time throughout this book as I thought he would. He ended up getting pretty lucky in the end.
I personally am not sure if we will see that much redemption for Leo. He felt a lot like Glockter.
Now I was right about this. The parallels between Leo's story and Glockter's story get explored even more in Wisdom of Crowds. I thought that was an interesting parallel to draw. I loved Savine's little comment in her interior monologue about how they say that everyone ends up marrying their fathers. Until that moment she'd thought of herself as the exception. There is construction work going on while I'm recording this, so if you hear any hammering in the background of the video, it's not the breakers and the burners storming the Agrion, it is just construction work going on while I'm trying to record. I was also right about what I go on to say about Leo becoming more ruthless like Glockter, letting his injuries and his experiences make him a lot more bitter and unpleasant to be around. So yeah, we didn't get any redemption for Leo, we actually got a corruption story arc. So I'm gonna take that as a win. I think I got that pretty spot on.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of self-pity in him continuing to blame everyone else but him for his problems. Japo Mercato, will we be seeing more of him? I reckon there is a chance we'll see more of him.
So I was wrong about that one. We didn't see Japo again. No more confirmation between whether Shivers knows about his existence or not. No meeting between him and Shivers. None of that. We did get a few references to Japo. And it did seem like there were a couple things setting up things that would involve him, like Leo wanting to invade Styria. I think maybe in the next set of standalones or maybe in the next story trilogy we'll see him cropping up again. I get the impression we might be getting a lot more Styrian stuff. I feel like we're going to be seeing more of that side of the world in future books. Here I am reacting to an old prediction video, making new predictions as I go. Just can't stop myself. My long eyes open, lads.
Giving him the heads up about Leo's plans.
Yeah, so none of this also Rika or Japo Shivers stuff that I was talking about came to pass. But I do have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed Shivers' moments in The Wisdom of Crowds. I think he is probably my favourite overall character from the entire series. Every time he appeared in a chapter, absolutely loved him. Stole the scene.
Trouble with Peace, we got some surprise reappearances from Vitari and Shanked, and also Korib and the Shanker.
So we didn't actually see Vitari and Shanked again, or get to know more about what they were up to, but they did get mentioned once or twice. Korib and the Shanker we did get to see again, and that was an absolutely fantastic moment. One of my favourite battle sequences from the entire series, not just Age of Mantis, but the entire First Law series. That sequence at the Battle for Carleon, that was just Oh, fantastic. Loved it.
Shank to go up against Yoru Sulfur. Ita versus Ita. I really want to see that fight.
So we didn't get Yoru versus Shank, but we did get Yoru versus Zuri and her brothers. And as I said before, that was a fantastic sequence, that was a great moment. Still, I think it would have been cool to see Yoru versus Shank, but Yoru versus Ishri, just as good.
At some point in this book, Lord Isha will definitely get his comeuppance. He was one of...
Absolutely wrong on that point. He continued to worm his way through all of the danger and come out the other side relatively unscathed. I was really hoping that he would meet some kind of gruesome end as recompense for all the horrible stuff he's done, but no, he just continued to get away with it. He wasn't killed by Shivers, he wasn't killed by Broad, he wasn't killed by Judge or anyone. Still worming his way through the Union.
There's a pretty good chance that Clover will die in this book.
Wrong. He lives. Of course, he got away with it all and is still out there, sitting very comfortably at the Great Northern Library. Who knows where that's gonna end up leading.
Rika definitely no longer has the long eye. I definitely think she got rid of it when she went to see Korib in Trouble with Peace, and since then she has been faking having the long eye and faking all her predictions since then.
So I was wrong and right on this point. She still had the long eye, but since she went to see Korib, we find out that it never actually opened. All of her predictions are based on things that she saw in her visions before that moment. And the reason I thought this is because in Trouble with Peace after that, she says predictions in dialogue, but we never see in her interior monologue any visions coming to her. And we find out in Wisdom of Crowds that that's because she's not had any visions since she had that done, up until the very last chapter of Wisdom of Crowds, where it's blown wide open and we see all sorts of stuff. So I was wrong, but consider this. I was also right. I was wrong about her not having it anymore, but I was right about her faking having it. I can be wrong and right about something. I'm a nuanced person. I have layers.
The owl ate the lamb prophecy.
Yeah, this is the big one, boys.
Rika is the most likely candidate for the owl.
Got it bang on. We find out that Rika was the owl in the moment that she betrays Orso. She was who I listed as my most likely suspect, so I'm taking that as a win.
Of the main characters in this new series, she's the only one who's not really been affected by the prophecy yet.
I misspoke actually there. When I said the main characters, what I meant was the main four, which I considered to be Rika, Orso, Leo, and Savine. Savine actually hasn't really been affected by the prophecy, other than being aligned with Leo when Leo lost to Orso at the end of Trouble with Peace. But I can't think of any way that Savine would fit into the owl symbolism. And besides, it was Rika anyway, I was right from the start.
It'll be heartbreaking, but we'll make a good story. So
And heartbreaking it was. She didn't kill him, but she did hand him over to someone who was quite set on killing him and ended up doing that. So it's, yeah, grey area.
I would say, I keep saying kill also. I don't actually think that also will be killed. I think he will live to the end of the book. He might.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. So that's one I was wrong about. I was really quite sure that Orso would make it, you know? I thought that he might lose a lot of what he had, but I didn't actually think he was gonna die, because even in the rest of the prophecy, Stour didn't die when Leo defeated him, Leo didn't die when Orso defeated him. They were both crippled and lost of the people they were beforehand, but they were still alive. Even as I was reading Wisdom of Crowds, I was like, yeah, Orso's gonna make it out. He's gonna go and live as a nomad or a hermit out in the north. He's gonna become an honorary Northman. Sure, that's where this could go. He'll lose his title and his riches and everything, but he'll be alive. Turns out no, he did. He got the noose. Very kind executioner though. You take the W's where you can.
He's at the top of the ladder, so he is primed for some kind of fall.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for just how swift Orso's fall would be. Like, I thought it would be at least the middle of the book before something happened, but no, the riots and the tearing down of the Agrion and the rising of the Breakers and Burners, that was all like first couple of chapters. It's like, oh, we're really getting into it here. Yeah, Orso's fall from power was fast and unrelenting.
The monarchy of the Union will be dismantled and replaced by a parliamentary system.
I was quite proud of my parliament theory. I thought I was being real clever with like the wording of, oh, parliament, that's the collective term for owls, that's what makes it part of the prophecy. But yeah, it is a bit more roundabout than the rest of the prophecy, so it makes more sense that it's Rika. Still, I thought that was a fun prediction, I enjoyed coming up with it. And I was also wrong generally about a parliament coming to pass. It's still a monarchistic world where we leave off at the end of Wisdom of Crowds. I still do think there's a chance that might happen later on in the overall First Law series, but it didn't happen in Age of Madness.
And that's pretty much it.
So as it turns out, I was right about some things and wrong about some others. I was actually wrong about most things, I think. Wrong about the significance of the Magi's involvement, right about Zuri being Ishri, right about Leo not getting redeemed and instead having a corruption arc, wrong about any meeting between Shivers and Jappo, wrong about Clover dying in the book, right about Ricker being the owl, wrong about also surviving. So actually I'd say there's a fair mix of right and wrong in there, just like the first Law series itself. Well, it was fun to look back on that and see how wrong I was. As I said, I will probably be doing a full review for The Wisdom of Crowds soon enough, so look out for that. If you enjoyed watching this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Comment down below what you thought of Wisdom of Crowds, things you liked, things you didn't, any predictions you had that may or may not have come true. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you in my next one.